really want to do this. And I just wanted to explain the 3 reasons why it took me 8 years in order to not be scared or like to do this. Is because one, it's really hard to come up with an idea for how we're going to do what you guys are saying, to like do something. The idea was really hard for me to come up with. I had to move to DC, but now I have the idea. And the second reason is because this way of thinking is really lonely, and I've done every group you could think of, and I never really made friends, and it's because I always was more truthful about this stuff than they were, and that makes them not want to be friends and hang out with you. You're like ruining their whole little Sierra Club or Greenpeace meeting because you're really trying to get to the problem. And so this idea that I have solves that, because my idea involves me making friends and talking about, you know, shooting guns. And then the third reason is because maybe I'm like really like egotistical, but if I were to really do an action, like take down a dam, I want a large group of people to know that I got arrested for doing that, and to fight tooth and nail to help me while I'm in prison or whatever. And I don't have to.
Why would you want to get arrested? Get away with it.
It's run better.
Well, that's cool, but let's presume that like I don't get away with it, because you know that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay.
That that's something that was absolutely crucial. For example, to this whatever success the IRA has had, is they were totally down for prisoner support.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I feel like I might be wrong. I mean, I know a lot of imprisoned environmental activists. I know about them because other activists have talked a lot about them. I don't know, I just presume that wouldn't happen to me for some reason. And so like I've been waiting until I get like this large group of people who are going to help me out.
I'm in. I'm down.
That's awesome, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I got your back.
So those are the 3 reasons why, and I just really want to encourage everybody to just really come out and do it, because I just came out like 2 weeks ago about all of this, and so.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one thing I didn't talk about, you know, when I was talking about, you know, that sort of death and rebirth, the stuff about how, you know, sobbing and talking to my friend, and one thing I didn't emphasize that I always forget is the importance of community. I don't really have very many friends with whom I have to revisit Civilization is Bad World 1 every time I open my mouth. And it's so cool. I don't own any stock. I don't think about the stock market much in general. But for the last like 8 months, every day when I turn on the computer, first thing I do is look at the stock market, and then I call up a friend and say, yeah, it's down 300 points, score! And the friend's like, yeah! And so it's great to be able to have friends that will reinforce that, as opposed to going, yeah, it's down 300 points, and you're like, why is that good? That's bad. It's like, oh, geez, here we go. So it's really important to have, I've lost friendships before. I lost a friend, Paul, in Carlin, because we were talking about some species going extinct, and he said, why do you care about that? And friendship. And in my 20s, I was afraid that if I talked about the things I really wanted to talk about, I would lose my friends. And then finally I got sick of it, and I did talk about the things I wanted to, and I did lose my friends. And then I found new friends.
And it certainly wouldn't be egotistical if you did an action like that, and you did get arrested, to want and expect that comrades would support you. That's far from egotistical. That's perfectly rational and inspiring. Okay?
Right. Okay, yeah, just 2 quick questions. Thank you both for being here. And first one is for Derrick, and the second is for both speakers. Derrick, I'm a grad student here at American University in DC, and I made a mistake. I said a mistake. I'll tell you why in a moment. But I picked up Endgame about 2 weeks ago, and now it's finals week. I'm supposed to be reading a bunch of other nonsense, but I can't put your book down, seriously. And I'm not done with the book, but I want to say, I heard some, you know, when you spoke about talking to the rivers and talking to the trees, I just wanted to know, was that a rhetorical technique, as you spoke today, you know, personification of those things, or do you sort of advocate a spirituality of the natural resources, natural world? And that's the first question. I just want to know if that's your own personal view. And the second question, Nikki, I'm very familiar with your site and your writings also. So for both of understanding, as you said, that only a small minority of the population would ever really grasp or take up the task that you're talking. Do you see your work as part of what you're doing is to simply open the discourse, to allow people to actually, from across the political spectrum, to actually open the discourse and actually consider the idea and support perhaps that small group? I think that's very important. Like you said, the dogmatic path to simply allow for people to actually consider that these people who committed the act might be justified in doing so. So 2 questions.
Do the first one.
First question, basically all the American Indians I've ever spoken with have said that the fundamental difference between Western and Indigenous ways of being is that even the most open-minded Westerners generally view listening to the natural world as a metaphor. And as opposed to the world really is. And no, it's not a metaphor. It's the other night, years ago, I asked a friend of mine, an American Indian friend, Jen Armstrong, whom I mentioned, where dreams come from, and she laughed and said, everybody knows the animals give them to us. And then I asked Ryan DeLauria a couple of years later, he's an American Indian writer, great writer, he's dead now. I asked him I said, that's what Jeanette said, and he started laughing and said, that's what she would say coming from where she is. And my people, they came from the spirits, his people from the plains. It's just because all dreams, everything comes from the land. All spirituality. That's one problem I have with any religion. I don't care what it is that is transposed over space. Because the function of a religion, I think, is to help us live and to help us experience the divine. And a way of living that would work in what is now Phoenix, Arizona, would not necessarily tell you how to experience the divine or to live in the Red Hills. Those are 2 entirely different places. And so anyway, I asked the frogs for a dream. Specifically, I'd never done that before. I've asked for plenty of dreams, but I asked the frogs for a dream. And I had the worst dream of my life. It was horrible. It was all about being continually murdered and continually raped and running as fast as you can to keep up with this train, the machine, and never being able to rest. And then also being consumed by flesh-eating zombies. I think it's all pretty straightforward what the dream was. And the thing is, I woke up from the dream and I said to the frogs, I'm really honored that you shared that with me, and what do you want me to do? And then I realized, excuse my language, but that is the single stupidest fucking thing anybody's ever said in their entire life. Because that is precisely the problem. Because it's exactly the example you gave. But if I saw you being beaten and raped, I would go, gosh, Nikki, I'm so honored that you have allowed me to witness those horrors. And what would you like me to do? What I would do is I would jump in to the fight and do everything possible. And if there's ever any time to breathe, I can say I got your back. That's the first thing to say, but that's after we clear out space from the flesh-eating zombies. And so my point is that, but we have too much distance still. But my original point, no, it's not a metaphor at all. When I say the tree says something to me, but I got a question. How many people in here have ever made love with a tree? Two of us will admit it, and one will like. Yeah, it's real. It's real. The stuff I read about the river, that's real. I literally went down to the stream, and it's what it said.
And to go to the second question, you walk kind of a fine line answering a question like that, where you don't want to make this broad assumption that you have so many readers or you're impacting them so much that you're making this huge change, but you do have motivations. And I'm somebody who was fortunate to be taught to read very, very young. I have a sister that's 2 years older than me. And when she got into the first grade at 6 years old, a very bossy older sister, still is. No. She'd come home from the first grade, I'm 4 years old, and she'd sit me down and teach me what she did. So I was reading at 4, and I chose a self-education. We